To this meeting of the Devon and Torbay CCA here in Bideford. Delighted to be here in Bideford, having had to cancel on the last occasion, and many thanks to Ken James for hosting us from Torridge District Council, and of course to the officers who have supported the organisation of this meeting. And so in a traditional manner, as we've been moving around the county, I'd like to invite Councillor James to say a few words.
I'll stand up. I'm not a particularly good voice for public speaking. So basically, welcome to all of you here to Bideford and to Torridge. You're at the north end, the top end of Torridge. I was just saying to my colleague here that we stretch all the way down to the A30, and I actually live west of the Tamar, which most of us locals regard as Cornwall, but is actually in Devon, which causes some amusement. If I have a co-get out and go over the hedge, I have to go and get a passport to get it back. I'm that close to the border, so welcome. Torridge is a fantastic place. We're only a small council, but over the last few years, we've made quite rapid movement, changes and improvements. We reorganised the council slightly after a few problems 6 years ago, and ended up with Steve Hurst as our chief exec. So don't hold that against everybody else. And so, you know, we are mostly open countryside, as you can see out the window. And the thing that I like, because of living where I do, it's very north coast. It's quite not bleak, but it is very bleak, is that when you go into Torridge, you know, we've got lots of small hamlets and as you will have in other areas, and picturesque cottages. So we have felt over the years that we are a little bit on a limb. The railway used to come to Bude and run through the middle of my farm, but it doesn't come to Bude anymore. So I've got a section of railway track that's just sat there doing nothing at the moment, but hopefully we had hoped it would be part of the cycleway from Holsworthy to Bude, but unfortunately Devon County lost heart a little bit in actually helping us do that some years ago, Julian, way before your time. So we like that, and obviously, as you would have discovered, getting here is relatively easy if you live here. Coming from away, it's not quite so easy, and Steve and I know the opposite, that getting away from here is quite time consuming. So they are. So we have, and within that infrastructure, you know, we have problems like with higher education, what's now North Devon College, and it's definitely been lifted by joining with Exeter College. There is a marked improvement in what we're hearing back from the college. And one of my granddaughters has just gone through it, doing a T level, and got the very highest mark in the entire country. So they must be doing something right, because obviously being a member of my family, probably brains isn't always a requisite thing. We combine agriculture and the tourism. We have Westwood Ho as mainly our really only holiday resort, but Holsworthy lives off Bude quite a lot, so we've got that interaction with North Cornwall. I'm not sure North Cornwall's got that interaction with us, and we ended up in a class by the government as the most deprived area in the country, rural deprived area. We got, after several meetings with ministers and that, we got £20 million, and we have really working on that, really in quite an improvement to the area. As it happens, if you take the statistics now, we wouldn't actually qualify as a deprived area. So we really have worked hard to lift wages, education, and all that type of stuff in the area. If you had time to look around, you would see we've got a state-of-the-art waste and recycling depot that we've just done. Our staff were working in an old Victorian building that was propped up, and now they're in really, really modern building with everything that goes with it. we're doing the Appledore Marine Innovation Centre. Then we're doing a lot of commercial stuff at Hatchmore, which is quite important there because obviously you've got Alverdiscott substation, which is going to be taking a lot of offshore wind turbine electric and stuff like that. We got, well, you would have seen an awful lot of housing going on around Bedford at the moment, as it is nearly everywhere. We're just going to completely revamp the town hall, costing us millions, and then utilising it because we got active Torridge as an arm's length company. It's been very successful, and so we're diversing into that. We just last week we started a new hub in Bideford Hospital, and I'm told there's only 3 in Devon doing the diagnostic stuff that we're going to be doing here in Bideford. So all in all, we really are punching way above our weight. I think we've been very, very successful, and I think it's been a team effort, and I'd like to just praise the staff and what we're doing, and those who, if we can get to it, if you were here from Fiona, you wouldn't realise we're going on a long way more. We are, and we be careful with the information, is that we are hopefully possibly having a data centre come to Torridge shortly, but it's embargoed for another couple of weeks as to whether it does or doesn't. So we're looking at that in a positive thing. We have got the capacity to take loads of electricity either in Alverdiscott or just along the railway line from me in Pineworthy. So we're feeling very positive about the area and going forward. So basically, welcome to somewhere where we feel we're very successful at the moment. We're waiting to see whether the government continues that or what we do. So thank you for your time.
Thank you indeed, Ken. So we're not expecting a fire alarm today, and should the alarm sound, please obviously follow Ken, the nearest exit. And he's all behind you, don't worry, Ken.
Steve walks quicker than me.
And just to remind you that the meeting is being live streamed, so if you could please ensure that you turn your mobile phones and electronic devices to silent. And at that point, may I please call the meeting of the Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority to order. Apologies for absence, please.
By Councillor Bukowski, Councillor Chris Lewis, substituted by Councillor Bye. We've also got apologies from Lawrence Fruin, Associate Member, and Sharon Robbie, Associate Member.
And I understand that Councillor Long, Satnav, has let him down, but he will be here as soon as he finds the recycling centre.
We also have 2 officer apologies, Sean Anstey, Director of Operations, and Matthew Thorpe, Chief Finance Officer, who is being substituted by Catherine Locke.
Thank you indeed. Declarations of interest, item to disclose any declarations of interest, personal or non-pecuniary or pecuniary. Julie, Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest in item 6 because that is in my division at the County Council.
Thank you. Anything else? Appreciated. Moving on to the minutes, to confirm that the minutes are a correct record of the meeting on the 30th of March. Any corrections for accuracy? Or everybody happy if I happen to move that from the chair? Do I have a second there?
A second.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil, for second. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. Not a problem. 1 abstention, Councillor Bawarski. Understood. Moving on then to item 4, which is the Adult Skills Fund. This is to seek approval for the commissioning and investment arrangements that will support the delivery of our devolved and statutory responsibilities for skills and post-16 education from this year onwards. You're right, Phil Adams to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, good morning, members. I think This paper follows on from a discussion that we've been having now for about 12 to 18 months around the devolution of the Adult Skills Fund, but also some new funds that we've received from government around the FE Capital Fund. In background, as part of the original devolution offer, we were offered £13 million of devolved Adult Skills Fund and Future Skills for Jobs Fund, which was used to support those over the age of 19 with basic skills, English, maths. And it was part of the wider package of measures that was the core offer within devolution. Now, we've spent the last 12 months working with the department to move this funding down, and we're now in a position where we are ready to go. We've been working around the Commission framework on this for the last 5 months, with the framework due to be finalised over the next 2 to 3 weeks before we go into the call-off process. So today's paper is a two-parter. The first part, which is probably the more straightforward part, is to ask the board to just allow us to now move to the call-off process. We've put the framework in place. It has providers from across the entire area, everything from VCSE providers of the smallest type, right the way through to national providers who can bid with some conditionality. We've been quite careful about that. The way that this process will move forward is that we're looking to split the ASF funding two. So there's a £10 million grant programme, which goes to our core providers. There's about 12 of those. They make up the colleges, some of our largest VCSE providers, some of our largest skills providers. The reason we've got a grant programme in year one is because actually if we put everything out to competition straight away, it would likely lead to financial hardship for some of those providers if we made some difficult choices. And that's something that we're trying to avoid in that first year. That echoes as well advice that we've got back from other areas who've been through this process around the potential for judicial review and other issues that come with moving it. The second part is around 2 to 3 million that we'll be putting into a competitive process in year one, and that's the call-off process. We're looking to put contracts between 80,000 and 400,000 out into the market on the extreme, and it will be taken forward on a competitive basis, but with a certain amount of tailoring. I mean, what we're going to be looking for in year one realistically is a mixture of basic skills that cover off our most vulnerable and most needy areas. And just running through the county, that would be Torbay, Northern Devon, Central Exeter, parts of Mid Devon, parts of West Devon and South Devon. It is quite specific where the hotspots are for skills. Funding around skills, specifically around sector skills. So, Alan, that would cover off some of our core industrial strategy sectors. And then a certain amount of funding around digital, because actually that's what we're being told by the community is needed. So that's the first part. The second part is a windfall that we've actually received this year, and all MSAs and combined authorities have received, which is that government has fully devolved the FE Post-16 Capital Grant for the year. So that's 9.3 million that we're being asked to spend to increase our 16 to 19 capacity across the area. You've got the criteria in front of you, and we're asking the board today to approve the criteria to allow us to go out and make some decisions about how we spend that. Now, there are a couple of things, I know it will come up in the questions, that I think we just need to reflect on. One is it is a devolved fund, so this is about how we spend it, not about how DfE may wish it to be spent. We do have a certain amount of flexibility there. The second part is that there is some requirements on us around the section 31 in which we get the grant. So we do have to spend it on 16 to 19. We do have to spend it on creating capacity. And we do have to spend it with registered providers. Now that can include sixth forms. It can include some of our colleges, and it can include a few others. We are just clarifying a few of those things with DfE. But for now, the criteria that we've put forward gives us a little bit of flex. But we'd welcome views on that because it is a new process that's been dropped on us. So that's about it for today as an introduction. We're looking for approvals on those two programmes from the board, and happy to answer any questions and go through the criteria. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. So let's bring this onto the table so that we can at least debate it. Do we have a proposal, please?
Well, I'm happy to propose it, but I've got big misgivings about it, let's say.
Okay.
But I mean, I'll propose it to and then we can debate it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to second. At least puts it onto the table. Let's open up for questions then, please. Thank you.
Just in terms of the criteria in section 7.2, Phil, care experience is a protected characteristic in some of our organisations. So I'm just wondering where we separate that out, because there's a whole list in the 4th bullet point, but because it is a protected characteristic, I suppose my question would be, how do we prioritise that, knowing the huge range of complex barriers for our care experienced young people, and also the very individualised, dedicated approach that is required to get success for our care experienced young people in any form of skills development.
I think we can probably increase the emphasis on that through the criteria itself. So just in context, it is one of the 4 core areas that DfE have said to us we should be prioritising spend on. And we'll come on to, I think, a few issues about why their criteria at the moment and what they're asking us to do are slightly in conflict. But I think on the care experience piece, we can reinforce that back through the core criteria. We can probably weave it back through. I mean, just in terms of why it's a priority for us, we know from the NEET numbers that that cohort makes up a disproportionate number of those young people across all of our areas that aren't in education, employment or training. And yesterday's report from the Milburn Review really brought that home about some of the impacts that that's now having. I think if we wanted to, that is absolutely something where we could put an additional emphasis on it as part of the weighting. It's not something that's within, it's something that's within our gift. So.
Well, it's not really a question. It's comment.
Really.
Yeah. Look, I've been going to a post-16 education meetings in Devon because we've got real problems, and there seems to be a real disconnect with this paper and actually what's happening in Devon. I can't speak for Torbay, but I mean, David, you may have similar experiences. Well, so what we're having in Devon is that all our post-16 colleges or secondary schools that are offering post-16 are closing, and it's being concentrated around a few colleges within Devon, particularly Exeter College, actually. So, for example, as we've seen it here, so colleges are closing, post-16 education is closing, and all those people are then going to Exeter. And that's great for those that can do it and are in a position to do it. But for those that don't live on a communication channel who can't get to it, they are basically cut out. And what I don't see in this paper is a clear strategy about how we are going to deliver post-16 education to children in Devon, of all children in Devon. And when we've been sitting in that meeting, we've talked about doing a hub, say Exeter College or South Devon College in your patch, David, or wherever, Bixton College, all these places, and that we are going to have spokes where they're going to go out into the areas. And we talked about having within those areas, we were going to create in where they are already colleges, we were going to create IT suites where virtual education could absolutely be delivered in those suites. And then at the same time, we were also going to be looking at vocational education by teaming up with employers around the county, so that because obviously if you're doing something like motor engineering and you need to have some kit to deal with it, and you might have to go into a central area where they've got it, but they don't have it in your particular school, but they will do if you're doing, be it apprenticeship or some sort of thing. So what I'm saying here is there seems to me lacking a clear overarching strategy about how we're going to do it. And what we're asking to happen is exactly what happened everywhere. We want them all to do competitive tendering. So the big colleges and the big academies who probably got spare capacity, probably got 3 or 4 people working on those bids, will put in, excellent bids, win that, and we will just see more and more concentration of education and in centralised areas. And I just think that is absolutely wrong and should not be what we should be doing. What we should be doing with this funding is looking at Devon and thinking, where do we need these spokes to go to in order to allow all our children in all of Devon to be able to access post-16 education? And then when we've decided that strategy, that's where we should spend the money, rather than asking the education establishments themselves, who they're all competing with each other anyway because of the wretched stuff that, you know, that it's all about, the more pupils you get, the more money you get. And so they're all, you know, they're competing against each other anyway. And I don't think it necessarily, you know, is the right way forward. And as a body here representing all of Devon and Torbay, we should be looking at what's best for all of Devon and all of Torbay, not what's best for Exeter College or South Devon College or there, but for all of Devon. And I just don't think that is articulated in this paper. So I'm very concerned that we're going to go basically to exactly what government has been doing all along. There's no change. Why bother devolving it down to us? We're going to do exactly what they've done before. And we're going to, you know, just continue along the same route. And then we're going to, surprise, all our sixth form colleges are going to close, and we're going to end up with one big one in Exeter, South Devon College maybe, and that'll be it. And then everyone, if you can't get to those places, well, it's tough. You ain't going to do it. And so I think there needs to be a much clearer strategic approach to how we're going to deliver post-16 education in Devon, which is not driven by competitive tendering from education establishments that are already competing with each other to try and get more and more pupils.
Councillor Fivecook.
I agree with Julian a lot on this. We had similar in Oakhampton, where their students ended up having to go to Exeter. Many of them, to be fair, wanted to go to Exeter because they wanted to mix with young people, and that's wonderful. The problem is we come back continually to the problems in the countryside, and those problems really are communication and transportation. It's no good offering people in the countryside a virtual anything when they quite often can't even get a mobile signal. So we are basically saying, if you live in the countryside and you're young, this is the only way you can get further education. And I think that's not good. I don't think that's good for country folk, and I certainly don't think it's good for Devon. Somehow we've got to find a better way, and I certainly don't want our sixth form colleges closing, because I believe that a lot of people don't want to travel to Exeter, lovely as Exeter is, and it's great for them to mix with other young people, and it's great and nice and easy for education because you have all the people there who can educate. But the problem is that you know, if you consider how long it's taken to get here today for most of us, a lot of people in the countryside, it takes almost this length for me to get to Exeter. It's a tremendous pull on the amount of hours there are in a day. I do think that we should somehow look at investing better in rural areas. So this is where I agree with Julian on this, to be able to give the local young folk the opportunity at that time. And I would agree, I don't think this really fulfills what we would like to see. Thank you.
James.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back up for the same stuff, but I agree. When I read it, and I've spent a couple of evenings going all through it, I was worried that I was seeing exactly what you're saying, and I might not be seeing it right. And it really, as I said, from a Holsworthy, and I know it's parochial, but it's representative of the rural area. You know, we have to travel to either, at the moment, you can travel to North Devon College, or you travel to Exeter, and each way is virtually 2 hours journey. And the children lose heart a little bit. You only got to get the train not running or the bus breaking down, and the whole thing goes wrong. So I'm worried that from Holsworthy, we're looking at North Devon, we're looking at Exeter, and possibly down into Cornwall to the college down there. But it's all going outwards. And our young people either lose heart and stay at home and miss out, or they follow that pattern and go away. So I have concerns, but I was still nervous, but I was reading it right, but that's how I saw it. Thank you, David.
Councillor Bayalik.
Yes, thank you. A couple of observations here. I mean, whether it's Exeter College or South Devon College, Ken himself said that what an improvement there was with the joining up between Exeter College and the running of what was St Petrock's and all that lot. So that's not necessarily about location, Exeter College. You know, you can have these hubs or this sort of thing. And we're also in the world of hybrid learning as well. Just talking about the public transport, I did say 2 meetings ago, or maybe 3 meetings ago, no, it wasn't minutes or anything. So this won't be either. So what I'm saying is I asked you to consider as a local authority, as a CCA, concessionary fares for young people because of the rural communities of getting in, how much it was for work, part-time work, or even in for college, the fact that they're paying all the time. I know there's a £3 cap, but that is still a lot of money. It is within the power of this CCA, but it has to be part of an overall package, not just randomly doing stuff, to actually give free travel to this group of people. You ought to think about it. You ought to really think about it, about this May. And lastly, I would suggest when it comes to this, has anybody been talking to people in this age group? Have we actually been thinking? Do we know what they're thinking? Because I talk to my teenage kids sometimes and totally different. I don't know what's going on. And what I mean is, are we actually asking them what we want? We're telling them. I mean, let's face it, we're all of a, well, I am anyway, of a certain age. Yeah. And we're all, you know, quite comfortable and everything, moaning about our car journey here, if you know what I mean. Well, buses don't need a sat-nav tell us with them. By the way, they know where they're going. So what I mean is we need to be engaging these people to give us the dimension of what they actually want to see, because people do, and I'm not going on about bloody Exeter all the time, but they actually want that socialising. So a little bit of hybrid is fine. That socialising is also very, very important. Met some young students from Winkley into Exeter College, love it. They love getting in there. They love their free time in Exeter. It's a sad the bus going back is a bit later and everything else like that. They want to be able to socialise. They love living where they are, but they need to be with their own age group of people to talk about all the things that they want to chat about. And I think that's so important, which is all part of the big problem that's been going on since COVID and everything else. It's all part of it. But one thing we can do, bus fares for getting to and fro college for kids, and also to get to and fro part-time jobs from rural communities. That would be a fantastic thing that you could offer, being the Transport Authority as you are now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bye.
I would like some clarification, if I may, from professional colleagues, because I didn't interpret the report in the way that others have interpreted the report. As I see it, it's how do we spend this extra money on meeting additional need in those places where there's pressure, because there are much larger increased numbers of young people post 16. There's nothing in the report, but I have to say I haven't spent 2 hours, no, 2 days. I haven't spent 2 hours. I'm confessing. I'm
usually very
notorious.
bad, so I did
Well, there
make
we
an
go.
effort this time.
Well done you. I'm notorious for not always getting these things right and spending as much time as I should. But I didn't read anything in the report about taking things away. I read that it's adding in. Joy of joy. There's a paragraph here that explains the plus of having an authority like this. So instead of bidding to the centre, the money is coming to us and we decide where the money goes, and we've got some money, but it is to meet the needs in those places with an increasing population. So it's 60% is on strategic need. Applicants must demonstrate a clear and evidence need for additional post-16 learner places. This should form the core of the application. Forecast growth through to 2035 in the 16 to 19 population within the relevant travel to learn area. And we know that is around Exeter, and that is around those areas where there's a high degree of house building and where there's higher birth rates that in time feed through, where we have many pressures on school places at the moment that will lead through to post-16. That's as I understood it. It's not about taking stuff away from rural areas, it's adding capacity where there is that growth in 16 to 19. In the Bay, sadly, we have lower birth rates and we're seeing them falling off. So how we could argue that we're going to have an increase of 16 to 19 following through to 2035 is hard to see unless we get our act together in terms of house building or our birth rate recovers. But can professional colleagues through you, have I got this wrong?
Let's get that clarified. Mr. Adams.
Yeah, so no, you haven't, Councillor. And this is part of the dichotomy that we're in with this particular fund. So probably three things that are worth saying. The first one is the paper doesn't exclude us from doing exactly what we've talked around the room. This does allow us to co-invest in other locations. It's not just about the colleges. Traditionally, the colleges have been very good at the competitive piece. They have, but that's not it. It's also important to say that this is the DFE restrictions on us. We are trying to bend those because we're a devolved authority and we've got a choice there about how we bend them. The second thing is absolutely around need. So just to give you the stats, because I think this is the important thing, through to 2030, Exeter's 16 to 19 population is due to grow by 12.5% per annum, not just in total. That's because of the way that it works for the housing numbers. North Devon, it's around 6%. South Hams, it's around 6%. West Devon, 0, actually shrinks. Torbay is static. So if we did it just purely on need, we wouldn't be investing in some of our harder to reach places. Torridge actually grows at about 3%. Castle James. So it's an interesting thing. The third part, which I think is really critical for us, is a decision for us. We have an opportunity here as a devolved authority to make a decision about whether we want to focus, as Councillor Brazil said, around need and around that really critical need in our rural areas, or we go with the national picture and we focus on headcount, which is what DFE would prefer. And I think this is genuinely the choice. The criteria in front of you doesn't stop that, but what we've got is a strategic choice, I think, for the first time as a devolved authority about how we spend this money. So I just want to calm nerves on that we can make some flex here, but it's for us to decide almost.
Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, no, look, a few things there. I mean, just firstly picking up on that, Phil, is the way this paper is written is it's not for us to decide, it's for the colleges to decide to put in the competitive bids to get the funding. And that's where I've got the real problem with, is that it should be us who deciding where that money should be spent, not other colleges or academy trusts or whatever. We need to know where our problems are. I accept around Exeter, absolutely, they need extra capacity and that's not a problem. But the idea that we're deciding, we're not. You know, if they need extra capacity here in Torridge, but there's no sixth form college left in Torridge, who's going to put in the competitive bid for that? No one. So, and that's why we need to have a strategy that says, you know what, we're going to make sure that because when I've sit in that meeting about post-16 education, it's because all the post-16 education areas are closing down because they don't make economic sense because it's all being sucked into Exeter, and therefore they've closed. They won't be putting in competitive bids. What we need to do is to get our partners like Exeter, like South Devon College, and say, look, we need something here in Torridge, in Bideford. What we would like to do is to set up a suite of IT so that they can do virtual 4 days a week and maybe go into Exeter 1 day a week, something like that. But that's the kind of innovative thinking and strategy that we should be putting forward, not just like, oh, we throw it out to the market, let them put in and do a competitive tender. You know, and that's why I've got the massive problem with this, because, you know, approves the proposed bidding criteria for post-16 Bedford. So that's for them to do. That's for them, not for us, not for us to decide where it would be. Phil, I love your idea about free buses and all that. I mean, you know, what we'd like is a bus first, you know, and maybe we should be sending some of the capital funding on providing minibuses in the thing. Yeah, maybe we should. Maybe we should. But the idea that we could make free transport for young people, I mean, where I live, even in the towns near me, buses stop at 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever. This idea that somehow it's like, oh, liberates all these young people, it's rubbish. It's just not how it works. And I, you know, when you said, Nick, as you read the paper, absolutely, that's what this paper says, and that's what worries me, is it's all about just delivering post-16 education need. Sorry.
The buses arrived.
Yeah, I've got that wrong. No, but you're absolutely right. When you read that, and that's what worried me when I read it, I said, this isn't I've sat in these post-16. So one of the Academy Trusts, to be fair, got together and said, we've got a real problem in Devon. All our post-16 education establishments are closing. What are we going to do? We're just it's all being centralised, and it's not helping. What are we going to do? How are we going to sort it out? And I sit in that meeting, and then I read this paper, and I think there's a total disconnect between this paper and what all the education establishments are telling me at those meetings, and about how we need to solve it. And this doesn't solve it at all. It just exacerbates it. So, you know, I agree with you. That's absolutely what this paper says. And that's why I've got issues with this paper.
I think if we believe that there's enough money in this pot to save every rural post-16 centre across Devon, we're really deluding ourselves. We know from what's happening across the market in many industries that if you want something to really succeed and to be a place of excellence, that is going to centre around specific units. That doesn't mean that there can't be some kind of hub facility, but that's got to be driven from the bases that we've currently already got. I think I really like the idea of actually the CCA looking at bus fares, and I think it's something that we'll pick up as part of here, the recommendation for next meeting, to actually bring back a conversation around that, because it's not the first time it's been raised, but that is drifting off slightly from where we are. I think we do need to make sure that what we've got is the best, because ultimately this paper, and more importantly this money isn't about supporting individual colleges. It should be providing skills for post-16 for those who to actually get them into a better position to get themselves on the first step of the ladder to move up, really. So I think we've gone off, if I may be so bold as to say, at a bit of a tangent, thinking that this money can resolve all of the problems of rural skills. I'm going to bring. Oh, sorry, we haven't got anybody. Oh, no, of course we haven't got Lauren. Look, I've got Donna Mason and then Stephen Watford.
Can I just? I think there are some issues within the report, and that's my officer and colleague over there. So I say this, and I know how passionate Phil is about this, and Phil has been in all those meetings with our leader, with myself. Can I just go back to Councillor Bialik and say, absolutely, we are listening to young people. Actually, we had young people in the room last week with the leader and myself talking about the challenges and opportunities, and we've been out and about, and there's a whole raft, and I know from our colleagues in Torbay that I think we engage with young people every day. So I know the excellent work in Torbay is happening, and I know what's happening in Roanoke. So I think it's really important to say that. And they're very clear. There's been a whole campaign about what young people are saying to us and what they want it to look like. I also want to point out that actually, in terms of that bit about travel, then, you know, our organisation has put additional £500,000 specifically for a raft, and we've shared that paper just recently at the Devon Leaders Forum. We're happy to circulate that, Councillor Bialik, because we've put that offer out there based on young people's ideas, and the fundamental goal is to provide access and travel. And I think just it's an opportunity, if anybody's not seen that paper, that we want to spend that money as quickly as possible to help young people. And there is a map of where all those young people are. So even at individual level, there's opportunities and a whole raft of ways to get access for young people in terms of transport. But I think back to this paper, which, you know, Councillor Thomas's point is, I think there's an issue with the word competitive delivery, and I think there is, which is in the recommendation. I think there's an issue with one point saying this is competitive funding, because I suppose what I'm hearing is a call for how do we commission rather than make it a competition, because what we have heard in those post-16 meetings is that there are opportunities to create change here, but there is different levels of support available. And we know that often we do commission based on need rather than competitive tendering. So I'm just pointing that out, that I think that language is creating an issue here. And I also think that, back to the councillor's point there about what's in the report, 1.5 does set out some clear bullet points about the difference, how this difference to before. But I just don't think it's in the annex, it's not prioritised in the report, so it doesn't set that out as a priority. So I think in response to the criticisms about the report, I would recognise that there are issues perhaps with some of those things that need considered.
Sorry, let's Phil back in to answer.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I think that is a fair point. I think the thing that we need to also reflect on, and Amanda, we may need to look at this as well, is we're also under some legal obligations on this one about the criteria. So we have to go and assess where we can and can't do certain things. Secretary of State's instruction, the word competitive actually comes from the cover letter for the section 31. So the commissioning piece I agreed on, it would be the best way to do it. And to be fair, and Councillor Brazil's aware of this, I'm unfortunately in a dichotomy here because I'm sitting leading on one of those work strands around the sixth form piece and this paper. And I've got a department that's got a very different view of the world from our locality view. So I think it's a fair point, and I think there is something that we can absolutely do in that space. Sorry, Stephen.
Yeah, so I just, thank you, Chair. So I just wondered, on the discussion and the debate, whether there was something around points of emphasis, because to my mind, having read through it makes clear, and I'm just looking at the kind of annex bit around assessment criteria, because I understand the need to go out to tender for these things. So it makes clear that the combined authority expects to fund a range of projects. So in 3.3 and in 5.5, it talks very openly and specifically about the fact that improving access in those rural areas is a key consideration. So I do wonder whether there is something to Councillor Brazil's point around just setting out the expectation, which is what I've heard from members around the emphasis is on that they want to see innovation and interesting new ideas that potentially goes beyond just the expansion of the core offering to meet demand. And I recognise that you're balancing attention. I absolutely do that, but there's scope, because you've explained it in here. There's scope to do that, and I think what I've heard is that members would perhaps like some greater emphasis in that. So I just wonder whether that's the challenge to Phil, is how do you codify and embed that emphasis within the framework you've got to work within. I just wonder whether that's the challenge.
Thank you. Alan.
Couple of points. First, just to confirm what everybody has already said, EDK is paying to get apprentices from Ilfracombe to Exeter to attend courses. TDK has the luxury of being able to do that. SMEs can't do it, so transport is a major issue. And I think possibly an emphasis, or another way of looking at what you're doing, when you talk about competitive process, is competition all about cash? Competition can be about criteria that we set, which could be about accessibility, travel to college, etc. So as long as we say what it is we actually want, then you can have a competitive process, but it's not all about the money. It can be about physical KPIs.
Thank you, Alan. And I think actually, to try and sum up, because we've had a good debate on this, I think what the board is ultimately saying is, or potentially, there's enough criteria in there for us to, and it's going to be on the weighting ultimately of how things are weighted in order to deliver what the majority of members are looking for on the board. So I will move to the vote, because I think we can encompass everything that's required. I would also want us to investigate the bus option, so that isn't forgotten. It's actually on the record. We probably need to, can't really include it as part of this recommendation, or can we? We can. Okay, so let's include it if Councillor Brazil, or we'll find out, is happy that we include a 3 underneath that we bring back a report to the next board to look at options around bus travel to particularly help post-16s. Something around that.
Well, I mean, how, you know, how big do you want to make it? I mean, it's that, you know, the buses is a bit of a red herring here, if I'm honest. You know, this is about not, you know, what I'd prefer to do is to bring the education to the people, not the people to the education. That's how I think we should deliver it. And I think the bus thing is a red herring. If you want to provide, you know, it's not about bringing buses, it's bringing the 5-10 million revenue per year that's going to cost us to provide that free transport for children. I mean, you know, you know, you say we can't, you know, it's only, this is what, 9 million over 4 years. I mean, it's not big sums here we're talking about. And the idea that we're going to suddenly improve, you know, suddenly give out free bus passes to everyone is and of course it doesn't help people who don't have buses. You know, if there was something in there that said we're going to provide 10 mini buses that can actually link communities with further educational sixth form colleges, I'd be happy with that.
Just for clarity, what I'm asking for is a report on the options of that transport to and from those units. That's basically.
Well, I mean, if you want to put it in, that's fine. But I mean, like I said, someone could spend forever on that, couldn't they?
Could we possibly build into the report as well some form of costing about having virtual teaching in some of our places, so that the children, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call 16-year-olds children, the young people don't have to spend 4 days a week travelling all the way to Exeter? Can we look at a costing of that? Because that might be much cheaper to do than to provide buses to take these young people to Exeter. Could we possibly have a look at that to see if that would be a better way of spending the money?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. So we've been doing some work with some of the rural and coastal centres around that anyway. And as Councillor Brazil's actually said, we've got a working group that's doing exactly that piece of work at the moment. There's a few pilots that are being put forward. So we can do that as a topic paper.
So just before we move to the vote, then please.
Just could I have a bit of clarification? First of all, so the funding stream is for 4 years. What, you know, because if it just turns into, and we come back here next year and it's exactly the same, few more sixth form colleges have closed, more people have gone to Exeter, to me that's a failure, full stop. Do we then continue as we're doing, or at what stage can we say no, we've got this wrong, we need to change it? I mean, I think as Donna said, the competitive I don't like at all. You know, education, it's not about competition, it's about educating our young people. And the idea of commissioning I much prefer. I hear what Stephen says about that we can tailor the competitive bit to criteria, and if we make the criteria suit us, that will deliver what we want, not what these big education establishments want, then I'd be a lot happier with it. But I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not sure I'm going to vote for it. I'll probably abstain, but I just need to I'd need to have some assurance that this doesn't tie us in for all that money for the next 4 years and we're stuck.
Okay. So I mean, if we run through the point, so it would tie us into, because it's capital, it ties us into capital build programs. That's the way it works. So actually what we're talking about here is a process where we decide on capital build menus effectively. The 4-year program is a bit of a red herring. It's a single one-off investment into a capital build program that can take up to 4 years to build these out. Now that has some benefits for us, and it gives us a bit of time. We do have a little bit of time here because we've got until 2030 to get this spent. So, I mean, with that in mind, on this particular element, and Chair, I've got to come back to the fact that actually there was 2 parts to this paper because the other part we've kind of skipped over. But I think if we wanted to revisit the commissioning discussion, and it's good points that have been made around the room, we could do that and bring this back actually as part of that paper. You know, it's within our gift. Actually, and I've said this to Councillor Brazil before we started, this also allows us to go back to DFE and push back on the national criteria about this, which effectively is what we are leading with here. We are a devolved authority. It would give us a little bit of an ability to say as a devolved authority, we have a different view. So if members were minded to do that, that is something that we could absolutely do. But it's a choice, Chair, for yourselves.
Okay, sorry, I've got Councillor Bye first and then Councillor Bailey.
I don't know quite how these things work, but in a bid to be helpful, could we not refine the recommendation
That's yeah.
to take on board the point 1.5 in the annex, which I think very eloquently states what everybody around the table, including myself, would like to see happen. So it's buried in the annex. Thank you so much for drawing my attention to it. I had read it.
I think,
but that seems to me to sum up what we're all trying to do. So why have something right buried in the annex? That is what it's all about. Can we refine the recommendation by somehow referring to that point in the recommendation?
I've got a proposed set of words that hopefully may resolve that. Let me just take.
No, you go.
Okay. So what I'm proposing, Anne-Marie, would you be so kind as to where I think we've got to? So we'll keep 1 as exactly as it is. 2, we change to, please.
So 2, change the wording. So approves the proposed, delete the word bidding. Yeah. Approves the proposed criteria for the post-16 capital investment fund, enabling the launch of the delivery of the programme from autumn 2026. So removing the word competitive delivery. Competitive delivery.
And then
an additional 3, the officers be requested to present a paper to the next meeting of the CCA in respect of the potential for transport options to support post-16 education.
So I think that hopefully encompasses everything. I appreciate we've had almost an hour on this item. We've given it a good talking about. Councillor Bialik, you want to?
No, if I was allowed to vote, I'd vote for that.
You have got a vote.
Have I?
You have indeed, yeah. We nailed you down, mate.
Well, I could abstain. Being evicted.
Okay, so in which case we will move to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And you have a vote as well, James. Sorry, Ken. Apologies.
Unanimous.
And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the debate as well. It's really important. And we move on to item 5, which is the Greater Devon Local Skills Improvement Plan. Again, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm hoping that this one is slightly quicker discussion. As part of the overall national skills infrastructure, every area has to have 2 distinct strategies. There's a skills strategy that we hold as the combined authority, and then there's an employer-led strategy that is put together by a business representative organisation. In our case, it's the Chamber of Commerce, where they independently put together a report, which is in front of you, the LSIP report, the Local Skills Improvement Plan, which sets out the business view of skills readiness, and it's meant to inform our investment priorities, as well as the colleges, the schools, and everybody else who's got a role in skills. What you've got in front of you is the proposed document that is going to be submitted by the Chamber and back. As part of our duties as the CCA, we have an ask of us to endorse their plan. So it's not our plan, it's held by the BRO, but we have to endorse it. This has been through SEAG. It's been through a number of consultation sessions. It's actually been a work of some back and forth. The draft you've got in front of you, I think it's fair to say, is not entirely perfect, but is a good plan as far as we are concerned on the SEAG side. I'm speaking on behalf of Lawrence, who can't be with us today. The 4 priorities around digital, around core competencies, leadership and access to employment tally with what we wanted to do as the CCA. So in some ways, they were felt to be a strong mix. Just in terms of process then, they are looking for an endorsement for us. They will be sending it to the Secretary of State with or without that endorsement. There are some complications if it doesn't have our endorsement. But in effect, this is the Chamber asking us now to endorse, on the back of an endorsement from SEAG, this final plan so that they can now move forward.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to invite Councillor Bye to propose if he's happy.
Absolutely delighted. Thank you for that eloquent introduction. The recommender, and there's a whole new alphabet language. I'm just about on top of alphabet language in children's services. And so it's nice to learn something new. That the board approves the Greater Devon Local Skills Improvement Plan, LSIP, 2026-2029, and notes the submitted LSIP Department for Education DFE Skills England is still subject to ministerial approval in line with statutory requirements. I read this in great detail with great interest and absolutely makes clear the challenge ahead, but also outlines opportunities. I was fascinated to see that Plymouth is going to need an extra 25,000 people to meet its employment needs. So I shall be moving down to Plymouth if my local government career comes to an end next May. Plymouth is the place, but there's opportunities, but there are huge challenges as well in terms of demographic challenge and inactivity and trying to get more people involved in higher productivity. So very sorry to see that Torbay is down there only just ahead of the Isle of Wight in terms of earnings and productivity. But it's a really strong report. So thank you to the Devon Chamber who've put a lot of time and effort into this. I hope that this will be easier to get through than the previous item, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I invite a seconder from the table. Thank you, Councillor Fife Cook. Any comments, any questions, any debate on this item?
Just one, before you go forward, just I'm getting a bit confused. I've heard of New Devon, I've heard of Greater Devon. So is the Devon County, are we now expanding beyond the boundary of the CCA, or are we doing away with the name Torbay within it and we're calling it the Greater Devon Combined Authority, or should this be the Devon and Torbay Local Skills Improvement Plan? Because I don't know what it's Greater Devon. I mean, are we taking over bits of Cornwall? I know you would like that, Ken. Bits of Cornwall. Greater means we're expanding into something.
Mr. Adams.
I'll keep it quick because I realise for various reasons, different departments have different devolved geographies. DFE is Devon, Plymouth and Torbay. And the reason it's Greater Devon is, as Councillor Bialik says, pretty much because they couldn't decide what to call it. So they went with Greater Devon. It is a running issue we have with DWP, and it's an issue that I know that Councillor Evans has got over in Plymouth, that they see devolution as being us with Plymouth in DWP and DFE. That may rise again over the next few months because they're also talking to us about using us as the accountable body for some of the emerging piece around Plymouth, to which we have pointed out that technically it's led by the City Council, but they have been quite clear that from their point of view, even if they're not part of the party, they consider us to be part of our group. So there is an interesting dichotomy there.
Okay. Yes, indeed.
Just a couple of things. One of the frustrations I find reading lots of this, and Phil mentioned it before about DFE, DFE don't want this, don't want that. And then we've got to get ministerial approval for what we're going to do. That's not devolution. That's absolutely not devolution. And, you know, I think wherever possible, we should push back on that and say, look, give us the money, we'll do what's best because we know what's best. And we shouldn't have to keep getting ministerial approval for doing the things, because that isn't devolution. That's just being given money and then told what to do with it. And that it just flies in the face of what genuine devolution is all about. And it frustrates me.
Okay, sorry, Alan.
Just asking, why is health and social care a growth anchor sector?
Mainly with this one because of the demand. So to give you a feel, we need 125,000 additional employees in the health and social care sector across the peninsula through to 2032. So it's our second fastest, if not our fastest growing sector, defence and thingy. Because of that, when you're talking about the skills piece, we need to train up something like, I think it's something like 7,000 to 10,000 a year to keep stable. We need an extra 5,000 on top to actually meet the future demand. Aging demographic is a real challenge for us.
I think we've come to that point to take the votes. All those in favour, please. Oh, sorry. And by the way, at this time, Councillor Bialik, you'll be aware that you don't have a vote. Which I
And I was listening to Julian about democracy just now.
Devolution.
Thank you. All those in favour, please indicate. And that is also unanimous. Many thanks. We move on to item 6, which is Slapton Minor Road Improvement Programme. And this is where the purpose of this report is to seek approval from the board to progress tranche 1 of the Slapton Minor Road Improvements Programme to construction, and invite Hannah Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I'm joined today by one of my colleagues, Lewis, who's also working on the Slapton scheme. So the scheme has been developed in response to the long recognised vulnerability of the A379 between Torcross and Streetgate, where repeated storm damage and coastal erosion continue to put connectivity for local communities, businesses and visitors at risk. So in that context, targeted improvements to the alternative local road network are an important and practical step while wider adaptation planning continues. The need for this work is well established. The Slapton line has been under significant coastal pressure for many years, including major breaches in 2001 and 2018, and more recent storm impacts that have reinforced the fragility of this part of the road network. The Slapton Line Partnership's revised strategy recognises that alongside efforts to maintain the route for as long as possible, improvements to the inland routes are needed to support safe and reliable access when disruption occurs. These roads are narrow and constrained in places, and relatively modest measures such as passing place enhancements can make a meaningful difference to their operation. Throughout the scheme's development, since its inception in 2021, officers have worked closely with the Slapton Line Partnership and its Inland Routes Working Group, which includes representation from Slapton, Stokenham, Street and East Allington Parish Councils, as well as South Hams District Council. Those partners have helped shape the current proposals, including a shift in focus towards improving connectivity from local communities to the wider A road network. So this is reflected in sections for improvement identified in figure 1 in the report. The A379 Torcross to Street carriageway repair is the subject of a bid being made by Devon County Council as the highway authority to the Department of Transport. So the bid, which is currently under development, will be submitted in draft form in June as part of the new Structures Fund. Work will then continue to complete the bid for final submission in early August, with a decision announced later in this year. The works proposed in this report in front of you today are in line with the Slapton Line Partnership's aspirations to support the local road network resilience and complement the wider A379 repair scheme. The budget of £1 million was allocated in the Transport Capital Programme, approved at the CCA board meeting on the 30th of March. There are additional funds available from Devon County Council's corporate budget, bringing the total scheme cost to £1.24 million. This proposal brings forward deliverable improvements that will expedite benefits to the local community while contributing to the wider adaptation approach for the area, making use of the available budget at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Again, to bring this one to the table, look for a proposer, please. So by proposed, to a seconder, please. In the absence of a seconder.
Does it need to be a constituent member, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does, yeah.
Does it have to be an alternative to the proposer constituent? Do you understand? Because you've had Torbay propose it
Thank you.
to be Devon.
Councillor Sadler. My
I just
apologies.
wanted to understand.
Yeah.
Councillor Bukarski. I think got that right.
Near enough. Near enough.
Thank you. My apologies, but thank you. We have a seconder, which is appreciated. Okay, move into comments, questions, or debate at this point. Councillor Five-Cook.
First of all, I know it's unusual, but I'd like to thank Sean because a couple of us had major issues over this. And very kindly, we had a meeting with Highways. Unfortunately, I was expecting a long raft of replies coming back for all the questions I had. Unfortunately, I received none. So we'll start again. Many of these roads are very single track, one country lanes, aren't they? The problem is that any passing place may be okay for a motorcyclist or a small car. I live on Dartmoor, so I'm very used to narrow lanes. One of my vehicles is a 7.5 ton truck, 30 foot long. So as you can imagine, that's challenging. And most passing places are impossible to get into for people to get past me. So it's a lot of reversing. So my questions, and I'll start from the beginning. This plan was to help the main Slapton Road when it was still there. Now we've got a problem. We're still waiting for government, and I don't understand why they're taking so long. But my concern is that this is going to cost quite a bit of money. People will expect it to solve a problem, and I don't think it does. I think also what concerns me is that the amount of traffic that's going to go down these roads. Many of these small country roads were designed for farm traffic or for very light traffic indeed. We're now going to end up shoving massive great trucks, tuggers, for people who don't understand what that is, that's people who tow caravans, motorhomes, etc., all down these country lanes. Now, one of the first things that strikes me is, besides the fact that we've got to negotiate with farmers to buy their land, best of luck on that one, that's going to take us a long time to do. We have really, in fairness, no absolute top cost it's going to. Also, what happens when we have something like a serious accident on one of these roads and we can't get to that accident with a fire truck, with first aid or anything like that? Have we considered, because there's very little information, have we considered a contraflow system? Have we considered a one-way system? How much else has been considered before we just knock down the size of roads and hope people pull into these car parking places? This is not going to be a 5-minute job by any shape or form. My real concern here is not delivering something because we have to deliver something. My concern is delivering something that is going to make things better for the people who live there. Now, some people will jump at this because it's obviously an improvement than no road at all. But the fact is would it be worth more time to look at it again and think, well, hold a second, is this truly the best option we can do for the people of Slapton? Also, the fact is would it not be better for more time to be spent pushing to get the main road done if it's going to be done? Because we have no idea. We have no idea whether the government's going to turn around and say, no, we're not going to give you 5p to do it. And then we have to think again, we have to think about, because obviously this would only be a short-term solution anyway. So all of those questions, any advice on any of that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, no problem. But we feel this is a proportionate improvement for the local area. We're looking at a range of passing place improvements over quite a large area of the local road network in order to give benefits across the local communities and help with their resilience, which, regardless of what happens with the main line, the resilience there is an issue in times of increased pressure. So whether there's instances on the main line or if it's seasonal peaks. So we're looking at a proportionate rolling programme effectively. We could scale this up as much or as little as we want. We've got an initial budget of 1.24 million. But as the document details, there are a lot of potential places that were identified where improvements could go in. We're looking at the initial tranche to see what can we deliver for this initial budget that we've got. We have done traffic modelling, which Lewis, you could add some more detail to in a minute. But that's looked at what improvements would this deliver. And it does seem to indicate that providing passing place improvements such as this gives approximately a 20% capacity increase on the local road network. Now, I think this will be important to the local communities there in ensuring that they can access the remaining A road network, which is what their feedback was when we spoke to the Slapton Line Partnership. Initially, we were looking at how could you provide improvements to a route that works in parallel to the main line. The local community feedback was very much they wanted connectivity heading effectively northwest back towards the wider A road network. So that's what we've reflected in what is the initial tranche and the sections that are coming forward initially. So we've worked with the local community, we've tried to listen to what their preference was for these improvements. And yeah, Lewis, I don't know if there's anything you want to say around the sort of size of the passing places, the engineering that's been done.
Yeah, so just one key point is passing places on a minor road one of the key considerations is the visibility between passing places. If you're in a passing place, you can see to the next one. That essentially eliminates the need to reverse because you look ahead, you don't proceed if there's something coming the other way. That's one thing we're adamant in the engineering, that every passing place needs that visibility to the next one. At the moment, there's a lot of line bends, which obviously requires people to reverse. To pick up on the point on caravans, if you're driving, you're in a bypassing place, you see a caravan coming the other way. I think as a considerate driver, which let's face it, most people are in those situations, they're going to stop and give way. They're going to let them come in. So yeah, that is that's probably the strongest part of the proposal, is that clear visibility between the passing places, which at the moment is not seen on those roads.
In terms of sort of alternative options, contraflow, one-way system, we do feel this is probably the best option that we've got at the moment for the amount of budget that is available. We need to be mindful that the local road network has low flows, but they are important, and we need to make sure we're maintaining access. As you mentioned, obviously there is a lot of farmers alongside the route. We need to make sure there's farm access maintained without giving additional significant diversions if we're introducing something such as a one-way scheme. So that's why we've ended up with what can we improve on what is there now, which gives a proportionate amount of benefit to the amount of money that we spend for each location.
I can come back. What about emergency services if there's an accident along these roads?
I don't know whether we've directly looked at that, but I would imagine that it's not going to be making it any worse than the existing situation. We're looking at increasing passing places, which would enable traffic to keep flowing in those emergency situations.
I'll let somebody else carry on. Thank you.
So I've got a couple of questions myself. When I first read the report, I thought, any money spent at Slapton has to be an improvement. But I was, the more I read, the more I asked, the more lack of assurance I was receiving. So I thought, ideal opportunity to understand before we go to the vote, to give me the assurance that I need. So you've started to pick up on the main line that's gone, runs east to west, and that's the area that you can't get through, that east to west. Yet the improvements that we're looking to put in place are north-south. So can you just that goes counter to what I think any man on the street would think. So can you just talk me through that first?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is we've been working iteratively with the Slapton Line Partnerships Inland Routes Working Group. Initially, we identified a number of different routes that we could focus on, and our initial assumption would be the parallel routes that run east-west like the Slapton Line. The local feedback was very much that the communities didn't want a simple replacement. What's happening at the main line still needs to happen, but this is about additional resilience that enables communities to move north and connect to the wider A road network outside of just the A379 between Slapton and Street.
Thank you. And so I understand from our previous conversations that work with the Slapton Line Group started in 2021, some 5 years ago. Obviously, at that time, the road was in place, running east-west. Since the collapse of the road, what further conversations have taken place, and that you're confident and you have assurance that the north-south is still the preferred route, now east-west is not available?
Lewis, do you want to pick up?
Okay, yeah, so I'm more than happy to say that one. So with regards to the northwest routes being the preferable one, sorry, the north-south routes being the preferable since the line collapsed, that decision, the strategy for delivery, was taken in a meeting in March this year. So after the line had washed away, that was a meeting between the Slapton Line Working Group, the Inland Road Working Group, and the strategy was very much led by the local parish councillors. So the initial proposal was slightly different, and they said, no, we think this is the best way of doing it. So we've listened to the community, we're delivering what they want. Obviously, they're the locals, they know the area best and where those impacts are going to be felt most. So we're very much, that's how that strategy's been delivered or been developed. It's on the back of that feedback from local communities.
Just moving on a little bit wider, obviously 1.24 for this tranche. We've had some conversation previously about the total cost of the overall scheme. Just remind me again what the figure that you quoted previously to me was.
Okay, so I'm happy to say there was no figure quoted previously.
I'm sorry.
There was no figure quoted previously. It was left as, so in the meeting on last Tuesday, it was left as after tranche 1, we'd have a much clearer idea of deliverability and how much the whole scheme is going to cost. So
with the greatest of respects, sir, when I asked the question when Councillor Five Cook was in the online meeting, I was quoted £6 million. Is that no longer correct? Where did a figure? How did I come up with that figure of £6 million? You were in the meeting, sir.
Okay.
Can I help here? Yeah. So I think if members of monitored, if you go to page 79, and what there you will look at many of the routes that would be affected, and then move on to page 80. So I think it was fair that we did look at an initial cost to do every single thing that is on page 79 would cost in the region of £6 million.
Okay, thank you very much. But can I ask? Sorry, yeah. Councillor Brazil, can I ask where your figure came from when the officer doesn't have that figure?
Well, it may well have been work that was done previous to Lewis becoming involved in it. Okay. So I don't know, but anyway, I mean, it doesn't. We're not talking about that now. Anyway, we're talking about the £1 million to do the north-south roads, and I think to be fair to Lewis, what he's saying is that when we've done that, we will get a clearer picture as to what the others might cost as well as if we need to do them. So that 6 million was if we were going to do that all belt and braces approach there, which you can see on there, and then this one. So we'll have a much clearer picture of what it will cost.
Okay, so if we just take the £6 million, can you just talk me through what conversation has been had with government and where government is? I understand from our previous conversations, again, when figures were quoted, that the cost of the improvement of replacing the road is between 10 and 20 million pounds. One would have thought that if there was a £6 million, and I appreciate the money's not there, but if you're going to spend £6 million on the small roads, is there a conversation to be had with government? We're going to put £6 million in. Are you going to match fund it? Where are we? That's kind of. So could you just update me on that?
I think importantly, we haven't had conversations with government about the £6 million total investment for the minor roads network. What we're talking about here is we're talking about an initial tranche. Now, we don't know how far into the total 214 passing places we would get into, or whether we were going above the 1.24 million. I think we need to be careful to view the mainline proposals and the minor road improvements as separate schemes.
Absolutely. So, I was talking about the conversation with government regarding the replacement of the main line.
So with regards to the replacement of the main line, there is currently being worked up by Devon County Council's structures team, which will be submitted into the structures fund. The final submission doesn't go in until at least August, with decisions later in the year. Now, what we're keen to do with minor roads improvement is this is something we could get underway this year. So we will be starting to deliver or working on improvements for the communities, with the mainline works happening in parallel, being undertaken by the Highways Authority. So give us an opportunity to start that work. What we're not doing is we're not committing to the total programme of the minor road network improvements. We want to do the initial tranche where we've used an evidence-based approach to identify what those passing places should be, including local community input. And we may well find that the total 6 million to do every single passing place isn't necessary and isn't required. We would almost need to start this work on the rolling programme to understand to what extent we want to keep going with it.
Okay. I mean, my concern is basically just absolutely there needs to be a solution for the area. Of course there does. If we're giving a clear direction that we want to invest, this is tranche one of a bigger scheme. How can we convince government that actually the main line east to west on the seafront is the one that we want to do, when we've said, oh well, we already spent 6 million and this is working now? If that is a position that the community have said, actually, we're happy to put that to one side, well, I guess I just have to accept that. My final question, 6.2 in the report talked about the use of compulsory purchase order powers as and when necessary. Within Torbay, we've used those on many occasions, so kind of do understand the length of time and the costs involved in that. So the decision that we make today, is that a CCA decision, or is that a Devon County Council to use those compulsory purchase powers?
Devon County Council will be the acquiring authority of land, so it would be for Devon County Council to make the decision whether to use CPO powers in the future. The decision today would give the scheme status, which would enable us to start land negotiations, or enable Devon County Council to start land negotiations. Now, the preference would always be to reach agreement by negotiation with the landowners, with CPO as the last option. We're not seeking approval for the powers of CPO today. When in future that may be required, that would be a decision for Devon County Council to make as the Highways Authority.
And additional costs involved around that CPO would sit where?
Within the overall scheme budget. So we've got the
1.2 million.
We would need that to cover those negotiations.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. That was very helpful. I've got Councillor Bye and then Councillor Brazil.
I just very much hope that colleagues will support this, because in the great scheme of things, it's a relatively modest sum of money to make reasonable improvements that, as we hear, have the support of the community, that have been worked through with professional colleagues. It is a part of the world that I know quite well. I think to some extent it's sort of a bit of a muddle with the line having gone. For me, there's who enjoys walking in the area and drives nervously sometimes through these lanes. The key is to try and improve access from the settlements of Stoken and Chillington and Beeson and all those places that I'm sure Councillor Brazil is familiar with, so that they can get up to the main road and heading in the direction of Totnes. It's made worse because the Slapton line has gone, but it isn't something that wouldn't be sensible to do anyway. And if that's what the community is saying, I think it would look very poor indeed if we were to go against the community, professional colleagues, for what is a relatively modest sum of money. I would say let's go and do it. I'd be able to drive less nervously.
To drive less, councillor.
I wouldn't be towing a caravan or driving a truck. But in my little car, I'd be driving, and the whole of anything becoming one way, that's a nightmare, because the only thing that slows people down is the thought that there might be something coming in the opposite direction. But I will leave it at that. But I hope we do support this.
Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, just the first thing I would say is that this isn't a short-term fix. The short-term fix would be to replace the road, because with coastal erosion, at some point, I mean, it may be now that road is going to go. So what we need to do is improve the road, the back roads, to ease some of the pressure that the local communities have. As Lewis has articulated well, we've been in consultation with them. They've made it quite clear that what they want to do is that from all of those villages, you will be able to access the main road. And if you look on page 80, you've got the two roads. You've got the one on the right-hand side, that's known as 3 Mile Lane. And then you've got the one which is green and then goes red, and that's 5 Mile Lane. And those they're actually quite wide roads. So the idea that they are your tiny classics or South Hams village, that's not the case. And so the improvements on that will mean that people will be able to get up to the A road quite quickly and quite easily without thing. The east-west roads, the reason why they didn't want us to do the east-west roads is they do not want to encourage people to use the east-west roads, because the east-west roads are those tiny roads, and often single track for a mile or so, and locals know their way around. But what we don't want to do is to encourage visitors to use those roads. They will use it. We are in negotiation with the sat nav companies to say to them, do not, if people find themselves in, they get to the line and it's shut and it's gone, do not encourage them to take the east-west roads, because it's not a shortcut. You will be stuck for hours, because if you meet a caravan, if a caravan meets a caravan in those lanes, you will be stuck for hours. So we are trying desperately hard to try and stop that. What Nick says about, the local community would be absolutely devastated if this was not be given the go ahead. They would, and also I hear the point that you made, David. The idea that we shouldn't do this because if we do it and it works and they won't mend the road. The reason why we haven't done it before is exactly because of that. It's because when we tried doing it, the local community says, no, you must keep the road. So they said, don't spend any money on the back road, spend it on that. Now, of course, that road's gone. They said, why didn't you do it? And they thought, well, because you told us not to, because you were worried about the road. It's the catch-22. So, we need to do this, because whatever happens, if the road isn't replaced, then absolutely. Even if they do replace the road, in 10 years' time, it probably won't be there anyway because of coastal erosion. So we need to do this work at some point. It's a bit like, and the sooner we can start, the better. So, I would, obviously it's my area. I know the area. I know the people there, and they are absolutely desperate for some kind of support and alleviation of the issues that they're having in the roads around this area now. We're waiting for summer. Summer's going to be not great, if I'm honest, roads wise down there.
Thank you. Donna?
Yeah, I think it's just important to say that previous MPs, current MPs, previous administrations, current administrations, this is, in that time scale, I've been down at Slapton as part of the officer team of the council, hearing the concerns about this community. I don't think we can take away just what Councillor Brazil said, is that then that trauma of that happening, and I know it from our staff who've been involved in the process, and also for those residents who are hearing that pounding, this was a huge event for the community. I don't think we can underestimate that. The devastation and the anxiety and the fear, and also just the experience of what happened. Their houses have been affected, their lives have been affected. And what I'm saying is there's been ongoing discussions with a number of governments about trying to invest in the line. So I think it's really important that the community can see that we actually care about what's happened. And in many ways, just like we would after a flooding event support a community, this was a major event. And I have to say, I'm really concerned that if we don't take action today, that community will think that we're just not thinking about them. So I just think I have to express that in terms of those residents have been working really well on that Slapton Line partnership for many years. People have been with the parish council's been working really well together. And I just think it's important to not underestimate the significance of the decision for the community.
Alan, final point with Alan.
I was just wondering, we're well supplied with narrow roads, and listening to the questions about access, tractors, emergency vehicles, etc. Will it be significantly different in the Slapton area with this compared to what we see in all the other parts of Devon where we have narrow roads? Is it significantly more attractive, or is it just more of the same?
In terms of
The issues about access that were being referred to, we already have those in many parts of Devon already. Will this be significantly different to what we already see in different parts of Devon?
I think the key difference with this area is the issues exactly what Donna's just described, with there isn't a road that provides access or did provide access. We know there's been significant coastal issues there, and therefore, yes, these local road networks are very similar to the rest of rural Devon and the rest of South Hams. However, we know there's a fragility associated with the local road network in this area because of what's happening along the coast. So that's why we're really focusing in on this area and providing those improvements, whereas it may well look like a typical road network in the rest of Devon when you're there.
Thank you. Recommendation is as printed 1 and 2. This is a vote of the constituent council members, requires a majority, and both lead members for the constituent councils to vote in favour. So all those in favour, please indicate. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you, that is approved. Item 7 is the budget outturn 25-26, and you might pass me along. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome along.
Thank you. So I'm presenting the revenue and capital budget outturn report for the 25-26 financial year. So just going to run through some of the numbers. So in terms of the core team delivery, at month 12, core team operating expenditure was 938,000. That's 195,000 higher than the full year budget of 744. However, once we take into account all the funding received in year, the year-end outturn position is an underspend of 455,000. So at month 11, the forecast was an underspend of 306. So we've actually seen an improvement of 129 since month 11. So just running through the reasons for that. So that improved position is mainly due to programme delivery support costs of 81,000, which have been met directly within programme budgets. So I think essentially provision being put aside because we weren't necessarily expecting to cover the economic team support costs, but they have been covered from programme budget, so that sort of top up has not been needed. There's been additional interest on cash balances for 12,000, and there's also some additional grant income came in of 25,000 in relation to the Redmond review, which brings the improvement since month 11. So the proposal of this report is that that 455,000 surplus is going to be carried into 26-27 via reserves. And then the reserves will then support the 26-27 budget, which has been approved by the board in March, and will basically help to smooth pressures in future years. And so the board will be advised of and asked to approve any additional actions of those reserves. In terms of the main operational activity, so payments made against revenue operational activity totaled 4.8 million, and income received was 6 million. So that's given operational activity surplus of 1.2. It's detailed in paragraph 3.6, but the main number there was the late receipt of the spatial development strategy grant of 765. So it's proposed all the funding received and not spent in year will be carried forward to 26-27. In terms of the capital activity, funding received was 50.7 million and total spend was 50.2 million. So it's an overall capital programme surplus of 422. That was due to the pavement channels grant, which was received late in the year, and again that will be carried forward to 26-27 via reserves. So I'm happy to take any questions, but obviously the board is asked to note that position and to approve the carry forwards fund spends in grant.
Thank you. So I am happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Kowski.
That's it.
Thank you very much indeed. A round of applause went in my head then. Okay, any questions or any comments? Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, you know, better news that we've it's better than we thought. So that's good news. Just rather follow on from the discussion that we had last time when we were looking at budget monitoring, and that was around the audit fees. And if there'd been any progress on that?
Shall I come in on that one? So Matthew and I reach out to PSAA as we advised that we were doing. They initially refused to meet with us, saying that we needed to meet with Grant Thornton to discuss the fees on the first basis. So Matthew and I have done that. We did that a couple of weeks ago, and that led to some minor amendment of wording within the scope of the audit work, making it clear that this my words, not theirs, but making it clear that this was their estimate of the work that needed to be undertaken, but that very close regard and charging would then be had to the actual work that was necessary. Off the back of that, though, and not achieving then a reduction, an immediate reduction in the fee notionally to be charged, we've just this week actually heard back from PSAA because we wanted to follow up with them, and they're offering Matthew and I some dates over the next couple of weeks, but just need to wait for Matthew to return from leave. Separately, MHLG colleagues, off the back of our annual conversation, are also following it up at Council Brazil at a national level. So it is a continuing conversation, but we are pushing as far as we can with it. Off the back of that, or once we've concluded the conversation with the PSAA, where we will be where we are for 26-27, we need to then bring forward a paper as to actually what could alternative audit arrangements look like in future years, because no one is satisfied at the cost proportionate to our overall expenditure that it is costing us.
So a moving feast, hopefully we'll get to a better position.
Yeah, I mean,
It's something that we're not going to be taking our eye on.
well, no, but I mean, I think we should be more than that. I think we should be absolutely, so when you go into discussions with PSAA, that if there is no movement and a substantial movement, and I'm talking about a 50% cut in the fees, at least, something like that, we will not be using them next year, full stop. So they understand that, because I don't think we should. They're just ripping us off. They are fleecing the British public. With extortionate fees for an audit that, quite frankly, my grandson could probably do. So, you know, I think it's an absolute disgrace. Absolute disgrace what's going on here, and they need to understand that's how strongly we feel about it. So I don't want you going in there and thinking, well, maybe, and I'll take it back. No, I will not support the spending of that kind of funding on the audit fees. I appreciate we've got to do 26-27, but subsequent to that, no, not going to pay it, full stop.
I can take that for you very clearly into the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please. It's unanimous of those left in the room, and actually, more importantly, agreed by both lead members. Thank you indeed. We move on to the highlight of the morning, which is our overview and scrutiny annual report. And delighted that our independent chair, Jane Wayne, is with us. Hello again, Jane. And I invite you to present your report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Yes, you will tend to see me once a year unless you summons me, which would not be good news in my book. So it's lovely to see you all this morning. The report is in front of you, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on the workings of the Oversight and Scrutiny Committee. The only thing that I really want to try and give you members assurance on, I've been very struck since being appointed June last year, at a time when there were a number of new members coming into the committee, what a good and balanced representation of voices that contribute to those meetings. I've been very pleasantly surprised and relieved as chair how respectful people are of others' opinions and priorities. And sometimes they are quite varied, but the level to which committee members wish to participate and engage, and also give input to officers about their areas of focus that they will be giving scrutiny to once policies are formed by this board, etc., is striking. So I think you should take assurance as members that there is a very engaged committee there. There are clearly some quite substantive topics in the work programme. So an initial report, I hope that gives you a bit more flavour as to the workings of the committee, but I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you very much. And just a clarification, after rechecking our constitution, this report is for vote. Sorry, it's for noting. There is no vote necessary. However, if there are any questions, Jane would be delighted to answer them. So, any questions at all? Okay, thank you very much indeed. It looks as though you've escaped this year.
Yes, this year. There's only one way down.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And as I say, that one is noted. We move on to item 9, which is our corporate plan performance report. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you. So this report sets out some of the work that we've been doing on performance management within the CCA. So the measures that you see highlighted in the report, which is an annex to this item, come from our work on housing, transport, skills, local growth plan, and our corporate plan. And so we've taken those and produced a framework that we can monitor our activity. Now, we recognise there's lots of different measures contained within that, and there are different types of measures. So measures that are perhaps more under our direct control, and some measures which highlight perhaps more of a state of the region type measure, the sort of thing that can be looked at about us creating the right environment for some of those measures to actually be seen how we're doing. So along with other combined authorities around the country who we've been sort of working with, we realised that performance management framework needs to be narrowed down into some more tight KPIs to really show what the CCA is producing. And so this report here asks you to approve the current performance management framework, looking at those key measures, and then also we're going to go forward and work with partnerships to refine some of those measures into actual key performance indicators. And then hopefully the board will agree to monitor the progress against those priorities. Further update presented at the board. I think what's key to just point out is that we want to be able to show the actions of the CCA, and we want to be able to show where the CCA has really made a difference to our community. And you'll see in the report some of those things are noted. I'll leave it there. I'm happy to take questions on this. I think the other thing to say is, along with working with local partnerships, we've done some close work with the Office for National Statistics to make sure that we're getting the right data, up-to-date data. And they've been really helpful in helping us with that. So we want to get approval now to move to the next stage of our performance management thing, and also that the board agrees to take another update in November when we'll have done that work and be able to show you some results from that.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. Do we have a proposer from the board, please? Thank you, Councillor Brazil, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bukowski. You just put your hand up in purpose, didn't you? Then just to cut me out. You're going to pause and second everything now.
Just like seeing you suffer.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate it. Let's. Any questions?
Yeah, no, I mean, well, actually, this isn't KPIs, is it? This is the motherhood and apple pie report. The KPIs is where we get down to the business, and so I look forward to that, and that's when we, we'll be RAG rated and we see how well or not we're doing. Hopefully, it'll be well. So look forward to that. Just one thing I picked up in the thing, and that's about the CCA's attending the UK Reef Conference. So as you may or may not know, Devon County Council has and it's all you've got the Great Southwest. So we no longer have anything to do with the Great Southwest. That's not something that we think is value for money, quite frankly. So I was just wondering, is the CCA, do you fund the Great Southwest at all? And what's your position in respect of that? Do you have representation on the Great South West Board? Or?
So if I will have to check as to whether we contribute to the Great Southwest. Certainly, with the transition away from the Great Southwest, Sean has attended meetings, Councillor Brazil, to oversee the future arrangements and to ensure there is a smooth transition, and that for the CCA that there is an awareness of those elements where we may want to be involved, and absolutely for an awareness of those areas where we don't wish to be involved as the CCA. But clearly there's been that attendance, but I would need to take it, Councillor Brazil, away and come back to you in terms of funding.
Thank you.
Alan.
I've had a few conversations with Sean about this because I am concerned that the existence of the Great Southwest just confuses whatever story we are trying to put together. I've never had a suggestion from Sean that they're getting any funding from us, but for me it's a live topic, whether their rebirth, where I know they are talking about getting external funding to support that, will actually complement what we're trying to do is going to conflict with it. From the pushing a business growth story, an organisation that has full-time staff working on business growth versus an organisation that has people helping and basically doesn't have that structure, is always going to have a slightly more effective voice than we have. So for me, it's really urgent that we understand what our relationship is with them and decide whether it's going to be complementary or whether it's going to be a problem. Today, having two messages will just confuse things.
Councillor Brazil, obviously, that we do know the Great Southwest is ending, so it is not being funded as the Pan Regional Partnership. So there will not be a Great Southwest going forward.
My understanding is they have an ambition to continue other sources of funding. Whether that actually happens, who can tell? But they're not dead yet.
So I think my understanding is there is an ambition for the name to move forward, potentially through Dorset running, but that obviously won't have a staff involved. But yeah, the actual organisation as an entity is due to finish at the end of this
End of June.
end of June. Yeah. Harry.
So back to the performance report, if I may. I just couldn't find Matt, and if you have skimmed it and overlooked it, please point me in the right direction. But there's RAG ratings and it talks about setting targets. It's not clear where the target's going to be set from, and it's not clear how we might benchmark this CCA's performance against others.
On the benchmarking, we started to look at, and I've actually worked quite closely with a number of networks that are set up through ONS, actually, with other CCAs, looking at how they're producing their corporate performance frameworks and their KPIs, particularly those. I mean, we're a lot less mature as a CCA than many others. So those CCAs that have an integrated settlement, for example, with government, have very, very determinations on what they should set out. So we've started to look at how other areas are doing it, and whether you mean benchmarking against that or benchmarking against sort of baseline figures. If it's baseline figures, we also have a report, again, from those statistics that are produced by the ONS, because they're national statistics that have been July to look at those. We've had another recent report to look at those. So we'll be taking that data along with other data from other sources that is reliable to baseline to ensure that we're getting that approach that is approved. Because I don't know, as I know, certainly with some housing data, there's many different versions, so you need to ensure you're getting the national statistics to do that. So we use ONS and to do that.
Just seeking some clarity around how we will know that our CCA is a high performing CCA compared to others. How you might set organisational performance targets and how you may benchmark those, not just the projects and the programmes, and I get all of that, and some of that is set by government, isn't it? We've been hearing that this morning, So how good are we as a CCA at delivering against, budget parameters in terms of the outputs and impacts?
So I think partly that will be taken forward in the piece of work we're doing with local partnerships about sifting and weighting those different measures. But I will also go back to Wendy and Sean and see if there's other answers to that as well. But I think a lot of that's going to come out in this next piece of work that we're doing with local partnerships, who obviously have a lot of experience as well with other CCAs too. So
I would also suggest that the next item on the agenda seeks to answer a number of the questions that you've raised on how good is our CCA. Basically, when we have peer governance challenges, that is a prime example of where we are against the rest of the country when we're effectively, it's not an inspection, it is, a sector-led improvement opportunity. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Okay, I think we'll move to the vote on item 9. This is constituent council members. So all those in favour, please indicate. And that is unanimous with both lead members voting in favour. Thank you very much, members. Move on to that report that I was just talking about, which is the LGA Peer Governance Challenge. Anne-Marie, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, really pleased to be able to present the LGA Peer Challenge, Governance Peer Challenge report. And hopefully, as you're all aware, Peer Challenge is one of the key offers from the LGA to deliver sector-led improvement, and culturally, certainly I believe it's really important that the CCA embraces that sector-led improvement approach. So at the outset of all of the conversations around the CCA, the direction from the constituent councils was always to build a combined authority that was effective in delivery, but absolutely had strong, transparent and credible governance. So we positioned requesting the peer review at a critical point in our journey when we were starting to move from that mobilisation into delivery, recognising that the decisions that we make now about governance will shape our ability to succeed over the long term. The reviews therefore provided an opportunity for us to take a step back, but have that objective sector-led view of how well our current arrangements are meeting that overarching ambition. The real value, though, will be in respect of how we respond, how we translate their findings into ultimate decisions that strengthen our governance. Important to emphasise that whilst the peer team have made some recommendations on their findings, it will be the CCA board that ultimately determine how it wishes to respond. What you've got in your packs is an action plan, but in essence it's a high-level action plan setting out a framework for how, with you and with others across the region, we will review certain elements of our governance arrangements. So certainly today is about the start of that process following the peer challenge report. But I think it's also important, members, that we record our thanks to the peer team. For those who've ever been on a peer challenge elsewhere, a huge amount of time, effort and dedication goes in from the peer team to give us their reflections. But also thanks to colleagues across constituent and non-constituent and our advisory boards who all met with the peer team over their 3 days with us, because it was from all of those conversations that the peer team were able to give their reflections back to us. Chair, obviously happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to propose this one from the chair. Sector-led improvement is something that I really truly believe in. This will be the 3rd peer challenge that I've received and looked to work through. They are incredibly they have the potential to be incredibly difficult to hold that mirror up to yourself as an organisation and to get a report back that says we need to resolve this, this, this and this. And I can recall some 17 years ago when Torbay received its first peer challenge. When I was there was a huge amount of work to do. But if I look at our improvement journey over those 20 years, it really is, we are chalk and cheese from where we were to where we are. That doesn't mean everything is absolutely resolved, because there is always an opportunity to improve from where you are. But I think this governance challenge provides us with a focus on those areas of work that we really need to focus on. And there will be some challenges as we try to move this forward. But if we embrace it, I do believe that we will end up being in a much stronger position. I would also like to add a third recommendation, which is basically that a record of thanks is given to the peer team and everybody who engaged with the peer team when they were on site. And I invite the board to a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Fife Cook. Let's open up for comments, questions or debate from anybody. Councillor Bissell.
Yeah, I'll come in because we've just had a corporate peer review at Devon County Council.
Yeah.
Very positive, particularly about Donna and the senior leadership team. I mean,
what do you say about you?
Well, we were a bit of a footnote, really. But no, it was great. I mean, I think what it did say is it said that officers and members worked incredibly constructively together, and that's sort of strength of it. And people first, the one Devon approach that Donna and her team have instigated is absolutely paying dividends. But anyway, that was the county council. Sorry, I missed the corporate peer review for the CCA.
You were funding yourself.
I was indeed, yeah. Just a couple of things I'd like to raise here, and these probably the first one is, and that is about the improved district council involvement. I absolutely agree with that. When it was being set up, the CCA, we were very keen that district councils had a vote as constituent members, and it wasn't just Torbay and Devon, that the districts had a voice as well. So that ship may have sailed in the sense that with unitaries coming along, it would seem, I don't know, but I mean, perhaps Ken, you may want to say a few words on that.
Well, no, I just looked at, sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
I just looked at the recommendation, all the details, and it did say that it just left the door open a little bit that the CCA could, I can't think of the word in now.
Co-opt.
It wasn't co-opt, but it was, I'm sorry, whatever it was, it just said.
Greater involvement, greater working, greater.
Well, it referred to the SDS and also, oh, I'm sorry, I should have took more notice. And then it did just leave a little bit of a doorway open that it was something the CCA could look at, I think, if I remember rightly. But from Phil and my point of view, we love coming, we love taking part. Slightly frustrating that we can only vote on certain things. I agree with unitary coming along. Do we change it now, or do we wait and see what that does? Or do we, as the non-constituents, appeal to the board to consider whether we can address that?
Yeah, I mean, from my personal point of view, I mean, we've got unitary, so I think it would be not pointless, but a
distraction at the moment.
Yeah, distraction at the moment. When the unitaries come along, then we'll know more. If for whatever reason that falls by the by, then districts would absolutely have my support to have more input into the CCA, and I think that's that, and they should do, and they should be constituent members. We were told when it was set up that that was not allowed, but then of course we find out that absolutely that has occurred in other areas. So that was slightly unfortunate, but we are where we are. The other thing, and it's probably slightly more contentious about it, and that is around the CCA about sufficiently funded. And I've made it clear right from the start that I do not see Devon County Council taxpayers picking up the tab for the CCA. You know, because we were told quite clearly that this was not another layer of bureaucracy, and yet what we have here is council taxpayers will be paying for another tier of bureaucracy, which until we can see the tangible benefits of it, I don't see why taxpayers should be doing that. You know, and I've got a real issue with that. So it'll be interesting to see what the budget says. I mean, I agreed the budget this year because the funding was okay, but once it starts, you know, I just put it out there that if bit like you know, if the CCA is going to come cap in hand to county council saying we want some money to help us go, you know, that's not going to work. That's not an option as far as I'm concerned. And it worries me about some of the other things about the transport levy. If there's an implementation of a tourism tax, I will not support that if any of that tourism tax is used to prop up the CCA rather than spend it on improving the tourism experience of visitors to our area. Because actually I do have some sympathy with the tourism tax, but not if it's going to fund the CCA. So, you know, it's a difficult position. I appreciate CCA is in a difficult position, but, you know, it's got to cut its cloth accordingly. And if it needs to make savings, then that's what it'll have to do. It can't come cap in hand to the county council and county council taxpayers asking for money to run it.
Chair, is there any proposal for the two constituent authorities to fund it at the moment?
Not today, no.
No, I just wondered. I thought it sounded as if they were, because I thought we were indulging in what may happen.
No.
That's what I do down the pub at night time.
And can we just pick up on the piece about whether districts or not could be constituent members?
So just picking up what Councillor James with regards to non-constituent members and their voting, that is not currently permitted within our statutory instruments that was put into place. So that 2015 regulations, and that's why that there is no vote for non-constituent members on specific matters, but also then that expressed vote with regards to constituent and then lead members. It's very prescriptive within our statutory instruments.
I'll just say from chairing the DDF have discussed this and just feel disappointed that we don't get that vote, acknowledging the reasons why we don't.
So Five Cook.
I'd just like to say that was my first peer challenge with DCA. So virgin at that.
You look forward to the next one.
I know, it's a good condition for my age, I know. I must admit, I thought it was very productive. I think it made us look at each other and ourselves quite professionally and ask whether we were working as well together as we should do. I do think that, again, Julian, I do think you're partially right here. I do think that as long as the CCA has more money coming in, I don't have a problem with it, because I think the fact is, as long as it doesn't need funding, then I think that's perfectly acceptable, because I'm hoping at the end, maybe naively, that the government will come to some form of common sense and realise, you know, if it's got money to spare, it would be a good way to spend it. So all in all, coming back to the peer challenge, I think it was well worth having. And I think it gave us the opportunity to ask quite direct questions of our critical friends, which was quite good, to be perfectly honest, from my perspective. So yeah, good few days spent. Thank you.
Thank you. And just
yeah, sorry, just one thing. I mean, I got an email the other day from a chap in he was a railway enthusiast, and he was interested in getting support or funding, and he was told the CCA deal with transport issues now, and he said, well, who should I get in touch with? And you know, it's easy at county if it's a transport issue, or if it's a public transport issue, you get in touch with Dan or you get in touch with Jackie. But who do they get in touch with? particularly an elected member, if they wanted to discuss something around a transport issue that has now devolved to the CCA. And I think that's a flaw in the CCA, that there is no responsibility for individual members on particular things. I think that there may be, the officers are a bit disparate at the moment. I appreciate that that may change in time, but there is definitely seems to be a you know, a slight issue here about who does what, who are making, you know, when a report is done, all right, I see it, but I'm seeing other reports from the county and everything like that. Who else sees that report? You know, in preview, you know, as a cabinet member for education, if there's an education issue that comes at the county council, I see that report before it gets any light of day and make my comments on it. So where is the sort of democratic input into some of these reports that come out, and who has that say on that?
And I think that's what the governance report is exactly trying to rectify. Where is the political support input into the stuff that's coming forward? It's a big driver throughout that runs throughout the whole of that report. I think just before I move to the vote on this one, you haven't seen the back end of the peer governance team. Basically, as part of their work, they return in 1 year's time to see how much further we've progressed from when they were here a year ago. Okay, so we'll move to the vote. Ken and Phil, you'd be delighted to know that you do have a vote.
I may not want to.
You might not want to exercise it, of course, but you do have the option to use it. So all those in favour, please indicate. Oh, you did use it. Well done. It's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Final item is quite straightforward. Be careful of saying that, but it is quite straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. So, members, this purpose of this report is to update members in governance, but also about the municipal year 26-27 membership for the board itself and also for its regulatory committees. So you'll see that set out in Appendix 1, and then the scheduled meeting will be set out in Appendix 2. So furthermore, you will see also within the report, it mentions the plan to conduct a schedule review of the members' allowance scheme and seeks to approve to convene that independent remuneration panel. And then there is also a planned overhaul review of the constitution. So having now been in operation just over 12 months, it's about ensuring that it is now able to deliver on the various programmes and its functions. So having drafted it in its in form at the beginning and now seeing how it's worked 12 months plus on. And so that there is a full planned review of that constitution. And the only other part, Chair, if I can mention, is with regards to the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Act. So myself and the monitoring officer for Devon County Council reviewed the proposal for that change within the Act and seeing what implications that may have. You'll be pleased to know that it has no significant change, and certainly within the board itself, the voting arrangements remain as is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a proposer, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Brazil, a second. Councillor Bazak. Oh, you did that again. Bukowski.
Sorry, we're having fun here, aren't we?
Did you put your hand then?
Not a word.
I think you did. Okay, any comments? Quite straightforward. Move to the vote then, please. All those in favour, please indicate. And that is unanimous with both lead members voting for that. Okay, that brings us to the end of our time together this morning. Once again, thank Ken and the team for accommodating us here. And just to let you know that obviously our next meeting is on the 28th of July, when we'll be meeting in Exeter City Council. Thank you very much. Safe journey.